Good evening, and welcome to this week's episode of Tuesday Night Talks, where I talk to you about a topic. This week's topic is the Fermi paradox. Um, well, let's start off with who the hell is Fermi and why does he have a paradox? This paradox is named after Enrico Fermi, who was a 20th century physicist. He famously invented the first um, nuclear reactor, and he was also involved in the Manhattan Project. So um, that's pretty cool. He also has a bunch of um, um, other things, a bunch of more scientific things that I'm not going to go into because tonight I'll be talking about his paradox. Now, it's commonly attributed to him, may or may not actually have been something that he said, but he is well known for having said similar things, so we'll run with that. The idea behind the Fermi paradox is pretty simple. It calls into question why we have never seen extraterrestrial life or never seen any evidence of it. We've got strawberry lemonade tonight. The idea is that the universe is vast, the universe is old, and yet life is so rare, in fact, that we do not know of any life besides that which originates on our planet. Now, I'm going to debut the whiteboard. In the Milky Way, there is between 1 and 400 billion, B for billion, stars in the Milky Way galaxy. All right? But that's just in the galaxy, our galaxy. There is 70 sextillion. That means 7 times 10 to the 22nd power, 10 to the 22, stars in the observable universe. And we can assume that there is at least that many planets. The universe is so vast, in fact, that the premise of the Fermi paradox is that it's absurd that we are, in fact, alone. Another factor is that the universe is immensely old. I mean, just take, for example, our solar system. We are 4.6 billion years old, all right? Now, how about the universe? We are 13.8 billion years old. That's pretty old. Um, I'm not sure if the whiteboard's helping here, but just kind of take a moment to wrap your head around that. The at its core, it's a kind of messes with the human sense of scale, right? Because probability states that by the sheer volume of chances for life to exist in the universe and to have existed, there's just so many opportunities that it is so very improbable that it hasn't yet happened and that it's not currently happening somewhere besides Earth, right? There have been many solutions proposed to this, and one of my favorites is the Great Filter, and this is kind of where the meat of the paradox is for me. The Great Filter was a solution proposed by a man named Robin Hanson in 1996, so fairly recently, and he supposed that there is some sort of inherent barrier between um, the creation of life and a widespread intergalactic civilization, right? And that would be the reason why we haven't been visited by aliens. Um, um, list would include things like um, just the right conditions for life to arise in the first place. Think of how lucky we are to live on Earth. Earth is a rocky planet that orbits in our star's Goldilocks zone, meaning it's close enough to the sun to have liquid water, but not too close to be super hot. Um, and we have a variety of conditions historically that have been well suited to creating life. Another potential great filter would be the construction of life itself. Um, Life as we know it is primarily coded by RNA and DNA. That is a pretty complex chain of molecules, all your polypeptides and the such. That's a pretty complex thing to have created. Maybe that's the Great Barrier that's stopping life from progressing. Maybe it's the leap from single cell, prokaryotic to eukaryotic um, life. That multiplicity of cellular life, right? Maybe it's the step um, of language, having a species that is social and able to communicate with members of its species to progress toward a shared goal. Maybe it's the use of tools, right? Maybe that's the great barrier. If a species cannot, fashion tools to shape its environment, that could be the great barrier. Maybe the barrier is itself. This is um, maybe one of the more chilling potential great barriers that any sufficiently advanced civilization will become its own downfall, whether it be through irreversible climate change or some other form of self extinction, nuclear holocaust, or some sort of scenario where the species itself becomes its own downfall. Maybe, maybe the Great Barrier is external, right? And maybe less natural. Maybe it's a another species, another spacefaring civilization that has decided to become imperialist and colonial that will go through and quash all its potential competition, right? And maybe it's the reason we haven't seen any is because of the maybe it's Cheskol what's his name? Uh Ty Tsiolkovsky's rocket equation, that is very prohibitive and doesn't allow a potential alien civilization to leave its home planet. Um, and a lot of these, proposed great barriers are something that we've already surpassed, right? We are a tool using, socially communicating, multicellular species, right? We are a spacefaring species now. Granted, not an intergalactic spacefaring species, but we have made that jump. So this really makes one wonder: is the Great Barrier in front of us or behind us? If the Great Barrier is behind us, for example, let's say it's the jump from prokaryotic to eukaryotic cells. If the Great Barrier is behind us, that would be a very good explanation as to why we don't see any extraterrestrial life, right? Because we are one of the rare few who were able to go past that great filter. Now, let's suppose instead that the great filter is instead in front of us. Maybe the great filter is, climate change or nuclear Armageddon or some sort of other apocalyptic scenario that prevents us and other potential species from exploring the galaxy. That introduces the possibility that the great filter is, in fact, absolute. Now, if we've already passed the great filter, if it's something that that is in our history, then we know for a fact that it is not absolute. But if it is still ahead of us, we cannot know until we get there. Maybe if the great filter is nuclear Armageddon, we can't say for certain that's something we will be able to get past. Maybe it is 100% certain that we will wipe ourselves out, and that all that is true for all civilizations, right? All right, let me go back to the idea of other alien species, other foreign civilizations. Um, Going back to the idea of other civilizations, Hansen, the guy who first proposed the idea of the Great Filter, he actually very recently, it's in 2021, he kind of came up with an answer for that. You know, he created the idea of quiet, loud, and grabby aliens, right? Okay. Um, the idea is that quiet species, quiet aliens, are the ones who um, they don't broadcast signals, right? They just exist on their own and they keep to themselves. This is contrary to the loud aliens. These are the ones that broadcast and expand physically, right? And then the third one, the grabby aliens, are the ones who they are the colonials, they are the imperialists, they are the ones who, are going out and, conquering civilizations. Those grabby aliens might be a great filter, right? They might be the great filter. They are what stops civilizations from progressing, is because that one civilization decided it is the only one that is allowed to progress. But when you think about it, the other two, you know, paths forward are also, um, you know, great filters in and of themselves. Think about it. The loud aliens are the ones who would be targeted by the grabby aliens and therefore get wiped out. But the quiet aliens will eventually die out without having, expanded, without having reached the stars. In that sense, they are also you know, a great filter. All right. What other potential solutions are there? Well, there's one assumption that I made earlier when I was writing on the whiteboard. Um, I gave the age of the universe. Right? The As far as we know, the universe dates back to about 13.8 billion years, right? 3.8 billion years. All right. Now, many scientists estimate that the potential age of the universe is 1 trillion years. TRILLI. Trillion years. Um, if you do just a little bit of math, 13.8 billion is a little bit less than a trillion, right? So when you think about it, if you were to live to be 100 and you were 14, you would say you have your entire life ahead of you. Um, that's the same context here. If the universe will live to be a trillion years old, right now it's in its early teenage years. So maybe it's not that we are so rare and unique as a civilization, as a planet. Maybe it's just that we're the first. We are the first to evolve intelligence, the first to take the steps beyond our planet, and maybe we'll be the first of many, right? We are the pioneers. We are the fledgling civilization that will, be the one that traverses the stars and finds all the other ones that are on the up and come up, right? It's very possible that we are the first. Now, which makes you feel better? Humanity being the first or humanity being unique? Would you rather that Earth is so rare that we are the only ones potentially ever that could be, um, a sapient species? Or would you rather that we are the first of many and our only uniqueness s- stems from the fact that we were the first? That's something to think about because um, for me at least, the Fermi paradox is less about the idea of UFOs and extraterrestrial life, but it's more a question onto um, what humanity is. Ooh, can you come up with a broader topic? Um, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can, but the idea that there are the idea that the Fermi paradox opposes, or not rather the paradox itself, but its solutions, really tell, well, they tell me a lot about how people view us as a species, right? Whether we view ourselves as pioneers or whether we view ourselves as special little snowflakes. And I mean, as far as the paradox is concerned, neither are right, obviously. We can't know. But it's very interesting to think about. Now, I'm gonna go through um, other potential um, explanations, right? Obviously, I went over how maybe we're unique for a variety of reasons, and therefore extraterrestrial life is rare, right? We're going against that statistical probability that the universe is full of life. Um, and I don't know how to feel about that one. Again, that versus the idea that we're the first, neither is objectively right. But other possible solutions include the fact that probability just isn't on our side, you know? Yes, there might be, trillions of uh, planets and stars out there, but, the probability that any one planet stays habitable for long enough to host sapient species is pretty rare. I mean, think of how many mass extinction events have happened in our planet's history. Um, another um, one is the idea that any sufficiently advanced civilization will end up killing itself. Um, I mentioned either whether it be through uh, self destruction that's intended through war, through nuclear Armageddon, or maybe it's a consequence of just progressing, right? Whether it be global warming, climate change, other um, accidental natural catastrophes, right? That's a another potential solution here. Going back to the idea of the conquering civilizations, um, maybe intelligent spacefaring species themselves are a limiting factor. In biology, a limiting um, factor is a certain aspect of an ecosystem, of an environment that dictates the carrying capacity of that ecosystem, whether let's say for example water, there's only so much water, so therefore there can only be so many plants and animals that can survive off of that amount of water. Maybe um a spacefaring civilization is its own limiting factor. I mean that the presence of one spacefaring civilization, thereby by its existence, limits the um, progression of other intelligent species. Um, a I don't know. I don't know about this one. Um, the idea that alien life may be too incomprehensible. This one's a bit of a pet peeve for me because I'm a big fan of science fiction. I really love Star Wars, but I love a lot of more general science fiction. But the idea that alien life may be too incomprehensible is kind of funny to me because so often alien life is depicted as very um, in such a way that is very processable, something that is easy to for the human mind to understand. I mean, Star Trek aliens are just humans with different eyebrows. As the joke goes, I quite like Project Hail Mary, the Andy Weir book and the Ryan Gosling film, for its emphasis, its focus on the idea of a non water based form of life and showing just how different alien life could be and a potential solution to the paradox states that alien life is just so incomprehensible that we may not process it. We may not conceive it as alien life. I mean, take for example silicon-based life forms. Those would not at all exhibit the signs that we commonly associate with life. Um, going from coming away from the more cosmic side of things, uh, uh, what's his name? Stephen Jay Gould um, proposes that the idea that a species will will have a bend towards expansionism and imperialism is not the is not correct. Most civilizations won't do that. That's his um, his proposed explanation as to why we can't see them because they're not out there seeking um, other people. Maybe they're just too far away. Maybe they have no interest in us. Um, there's a lot of other reasons why they might not choose to visit us. I mean, hey, maybe we're a nature preserve and we only get to join them once we're all grown up and I don't know, proper spacefaring civilization. Maybe we're a nature preserve. Maybe we're a zoo. Um, um, those are all very funny, but I think this is a very poignant thought experiment, and it gives me a lot of insight into um, how people or how we view ourselves, right? I'm not entirely decided as to um, whether or not I mean, I'm a firm believer that alien life exists out there somewhere, but I think the big split, the fence that I'm teetering on, is whether I would prefer that we are so very unique or that we are simply the first. I get to do the classic YouTuber thing of saying, "Let me know down in the comments whether you would prefer that we are the first or we are the exception to the norm." And with that, I'll thank you for watching and bid you good night.